Hello and welcome to another random chess puzzles video. So I always mention that one of the best ways to improve your chess is by solving tactics problems regularly, because we can always improve our tactics. All right, so in this game we have white. This pawn just captured from c4 here to d5, capturing, and I didn't see what it captured. Let's look at the material here. We have two knights and a bishop versus two knights and a bishop, two rooks and a queen. So material is even. Pawns are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 versus 8. So perhaps a pawn was captured here. And now there's a discovered attack on our queen as well. All right. Well, a lot going on in this position. And I've bumped it up a little harder. So these problems are rated 1400 to 1900. So pause the video at any time if you need more time to think. And also, a viewer made a good point. I try to go slower. That way beginner players can understand everything and follow along. But if I'm moving too slow, you can always increase the video playback speed to like 1.5 or something to speed it up a little bit. All right. What is happening here? Quite a bit. Now, the first thing you want to look at in your games, or these tactics problems, is if there are any checks. So checks, captures, and threats are the first things you want to look at. Doesn't look like there's any way to check the king other than a queen capture here. So maybe that's a possibility. Because our queen's under attack, but then again, so is our opponent's queen here. So, I don't know, a lot going on. We could, maybe capture. That's a possibility, and that looks to be the only check that I see. Then, captures, once again, the capture of the rook here by the queen. So, this is a possibility. What else? What else? I don't know. You want to look at the most important pieces, which are these queens, other than the kings. If the king can be checked. So maybe that is the best move. Capturing here with our queen, delivering a check. Now that would force either a knight capture or rook capture here. Maybe the rook capture would be better, because it would bring the rook to the open file, something like that. Then that would allow you to possibly grab the queen here with this rook. But then the knight could recapture. So then what? Then you could grab this pawn with the knight, perhaps. Oh, and then you would be attacking their knight. A lot going on here. All right, take a look at this. Pause the video if you really want to dig deep into this. These problems are a little more complicated, so there's more going on here. Let's see if we have anything better. What if we immediately capture the queen here? And then they might want to capture our queen. And our rook would be under attack. Oh, but then we could capture their knight. Man, all right. A lot going on here. Have I mentioned that before? Okay. So there's also the possibility after pieces are traded of this pawn capturing and then trying to promote. So there's that possibility. So maybe we take All right, do we take the queen? All right, I don't know. There's so much going on here that I may not pick the right move. Do we jump our knight forward, attacking their queen? Their queen could retreat. And then our queen would still be under attack. Or maybe we just recapture this pawn with our queen, getting out of the line of fire. So that's a possibility. If we capture the pawn with our queen, then we still have their queen under attack. Can they attack our queen in any way? If we attack here, their queen will be under attack by our rook and would have to retreat. That would allow us to capture this knight. Once the bishop captures, we could just capture the pawn and fork here. So I don't know. That seems to be one of the easiest ways to play, is to just get the queen out of the line of fire. All right, that's what I'm going to go with. Yep, and that's wrong because they want something more forcing here. So the other option is, do we just capture? Okay, that's what they wanted. But now what? Do we take this knight? But we're behind in material. We probably have to go after the queen. Like that. And then what? Now we capture and threaten to promote. Something like that. Okay, so I guess that's what they want because the bishop is covering this. All right, that was a 16-10 rated, but there was a lot going on there. So hopefully you did better than I did. Let's move on to the next one. I'm trying to get 10 of these problems completed, and that one took a while. So the knight has jumped up here to f4. Forking our queen and bishop here. So we should look for checks first, which is usually a good strategy. And I think if we do that, that will help us find the best moves here. So pause the video if you need to. If not, then I'm thinking the obvious move would be queen captures the pawn with check. And I mentioned this before. Whenever a queen checks on a square next to the king, if it's a corner square, usually the queen will cover everything this way, and through the center. And that leaves only here and here, the opposite central squares. that the queen does not cover. So once we capture here, the king will have to run and go to here, the only option. And then our knight can jump up here, delivering a check, and the only way to stop that is to capture with the queen, and then we can just pick that queen off. So capture, knight, and then we can just grab the queen. Now, we can do that with a pawn and threaten a mate. So that's probably the best way to go. Instead of capturing with the queen to avoid breaking up our pawns, we can capture with the pawn and threaten a mate here on g7. But we want to make sure that there's nothing our opponent could do. The opponent could stop that, though, by jumping the knight back here and covering this. All right, so maybe it'd be better to capture with the queen, and then we're threatening this pawn, but then a rook could just come over and back that up. All right, so maybe this is more forcing. If we capture with the pawn, so capture with the pawn, threatening a mate here, the knight will have to jump here to cover that. And then we could move our bishop up here, threatening to knock that out. All right. Yeah, and that's what they wanted. Because now if the knight moves here to cover this, we can move our bishop up here to knock the knight out. All right, on to problem number 3. What is this? A knight has just moved forward. So what do we look for? Checks, captures, and threats. Checks first. So in that order, checks, captures, and threats. Well, we could just check here. That's a possibility. But then the king could run here. Then what do we do? Our queen could then move down to here, checking. If the king went back to where it was, then our rook could move up here and deliver a mate. So instead, once the king is here, after we have moved here with check, and the king moves to e2, queen to f3 check. The only place the king can go is here. We could snatch up a pawn. But that doesn't look like it wins the game. So we need to look at material. We are behind by what? A knight and a bishop. But they have 4 pawns and we have 5 or 6. So they're ahead by a piece and the equivalent of a piece and a pawn. All right. So we need more. We need a way to try and mate our opponent. Oh, well, we could just jump down here. Snatch up this knight, but then we'll still be behind. Okay. So, the obvious moves are, and a lot of times you need at least 3 pieces to conduct a successful attack against the king. Now, not always. If the king is really limited on where it can go, only 1 piece might deliver a mate. But looks like check, forcing the king to go here. Then we can go here, delivering a check, forcing the king to go here. Then what? Oh, then we just deliver a mate over here. Okay. All right. Take a look at that. Hopefully you can figure that out in your head. Pause the video if you need to. All right, here we go. Check, check, and mate. And so here's another pattern that's well worth remembering. Now, we saw if you attack a king with a queen on one of the corner squares, then it would cover the two sides, the squares through the center, but not the opposite two center squares. Here, we're attacking the king from one of the central squares on one of the sides, and so that covers all of this, here, and here. The only thing we're not covering are here and here, the opposite two corner squares. So this is an interesting pattern to remember. If you can put your queen on the side square here, delivering a check, but make sure you're protected, of course, by the rook here, or another piece, and then you're attacking through the center, this whole side here, and this square and this square. The only two you're not covering are these two squares up here in the corner, but pieces are restricting the king. All right, a good pattern to know. On to the next problem. So we have, let's see, the rook jumping to c8 here, pinning our rook to the king, threatening to capture and deliver a mate. If we capture, the queen could recapture, checking and delivering a mate as well. So that means we need to work in a hurry here. We need to look for checks, and probably only checks, because when you're about to be checkmated, you really have to either leave an escape route for your king or counterattack. So let's see if we can counterattack. Look at the checks first. The only check I see is the queen capturing with checks. So pause the video if you need more time to think. If not, I'm thinking sacrificing the queen here. If the king moves to the corner, well, then we can capture the rook here and deliver mate. So the rook would capture, and now we can use this rook to deliver a check. And if the rook blocks, then we can't capture with this rook, but the other one would be able to capture and deliver a mate here. Okay, so take a look at that. See if you can figure it out on your own and try and do it all in your head if you can. And that's something also to remember. If you're solving tactics and puzzles, try to do as much as you can in your head, because of course in a real game, especially in a tournament game, you're not going to be able to play some moves and then take them back, or play a couple moves and then, it looks like that's working, I can continue, because if it doesn't work, then you might just be losing the game. All right, here we go. Capture. Now we deliver a check, and because this rook is pinned, here we have to capture with this one and deliver the mate. All right, that was a 15-20 rated problem, and on to problem number 5, and we'll be halfway there. Okay, we have a rook on the 7th rank, which is usually good. So they're trying to get rid of that rook by attacking us here. can we ignore that and counterattack? Do we have any checks, captures, or threats? Excuse me. All right, let's look for checks. Well, the only checks are, let's see, queen here, but then the pawn could just capture us, or the queen could capture us. Probably the queen, because that would deliver a check on our own king. Other checks. Rook here. Does that do anything? The king could just capture. And then we could deliver another check with the knight once the king is up here. But then the pawn could just capture us. And then what have we achieved? Not much. All right. So I don't know. The checks don't look too promising. So captures. Well, we could capture up here. And it would be an even trade. The rook would recapture. We could capture this pawn, perhaps here with our pawn, protecting. Then if their rook captured, we could recapture, but then their rook would be able to move in and block us. And then maybe take. Oh, but then this, okay. Pause the video and take a look at this. All right, let's take a look at this again. If we capture here, backing our rook up, they could immediately capture. We capture. And then we have a threat of this skewering the king and the queen here. Once the king moves, our rook could capture. So that's a possibility. Okay. So let's take a look at that. Should we capture first? Then capture with the pawn? I don't know if that's forcing enough, because then the king, if we capture immediately with the pawn, we can also capture, if they capture our rook, we could capture back with a rook. Oh, and then our queen could possibly jump up into the action here. All right, I don't know. This is looking to be the way to go. Capture here. They could capture our rook. Then what? Hold on. So, capture, rook captures, pawn captures. Then we have a threat of capturing this pawn and skewering the king and the queen. All right, I think that's the way to go. So let's try it. Oh, okay. So they immediately, this is a move I didn't look at. So this is another reason it's very important to look at checks, captures, and threats, not only against your opponent, but what your opponent can do to you as well. Because this could have been more serious. Here I can block with the queen. Looks like that's the only thing to do. Okay. So now, can I ignore this attack? I'm going to say go here. Okay, now I'm forced to capture. All right. But, oh, this is very serious. Now, if they capture here, if they capture, we can capture and have a discovered attack on the king with this rook, and we'll be able to promote our pawn, and they'll have to give up their other rook for the pawn that we promote, and then we'll go ahead by a rook there. All right. Well, that was a 1710 rated problem. Hopefully you did all right with that. Let's try the final 5 problems here. Okay, what is this? Does that even make sense? Maybe they captured something there. I didn't see it quick enough. You can rewind the video, I guess, if you want to see what happened. But it looks like we can just capture with our bishop. All right. Well, once we capture, we'll be ahead there. But then the queen can jump down here and attack our bishop. Oh, okay, this is really dangerous. So, take a look at this. Pause the video if you need more time to think. If not, let's go here. All right. Do we want to just capture that? If we do that, the queen could jump down here. Kind of trapping our bishop, sort of. I guess the bishop could go here, but the bishop would be trapped, it looks like. So, what if we ignore the rook and instead we deliver a check? Does that do anything? Remember, look for checks first. So, check. The king can't go here because of our bishop. Whenever a king is under attack, what are the options? Well, capture the attacker, block the attacker, or run. So if we go here with our queen, delivering a check, queen can't be captured, but there is a possibility of blocking with the pawn or running with the king. So if the pawn blocks, well, then what? We can continue our attack by going here, forcing the pawn to move up, or excuse me, the king to move up. Probably to here. So that looks to be the way to go. Let me get rid of all these lines. So queen check. Now if the king runs immediately, well then it could be even worse. We could bring the bishop up here, threatening a mate up here. With our queen here, we could threaten a mate. With the bishop up here, threaten a mate here. If the king runs up here. Now, we want to look for any crazy sacrifices. What if we go here with check? If the king blocks, which he'll probably do, we can go here checking again. King would probably move here. And then I think we can just go up here with our bishop, threatening a mate. And they may have to sacrifice their rook. We could capture. Their queen comes down with check. But we'll be able to move and run, I believe. All right, here we go. All right, that may have made it easier for us. If we go here with the bishop, he'll have to block. Now he just gives up the queen instead of blocking, because that block would have only been temporary, I guess. But now we can just pick off the queen. All right. And then if the king captured, we could even go up here, pick off this pawn, or we could immediately pick this off. All right. That was a 1580 problem. We have 4 more. Here we go. The knight is moved forward, attacking our knight along with the rook and the queen. And the knight is pinned to our queen. But man, they have queen, bishop, rook, knight, 4 pieces piling up versus our 1, 2, 3 defenders. The one advantage we have, though, what do I always tell you to do first? Look for checks, captures, or threats. In that order, checks first. So, what checks do we have? Queen sacrifice, here or here. Does that look good at all? It looks like you just give up your queen and it'll be recaptured. But an even trickier move look when it comes to captures and threats, look for any unprotected pieces, or pawns, but pieces are even better. And if you do that, you'll see that one of white's pieces is unprotected. Which one? All right, the queen is unprotected. So, if we could move this knight here, delivering a check, and then have a discovered attack on the queen. Now, it matters where you move this knight, okay? You could check here or here. One of them works and the other one doesn't. So, if we go here, then the queen could take care of both problems at once. It's under attack. It could just move and capture the checking knight. So that forces us to go to the other square. All right, so hopefully you found that. And then we just pick off the queen here. All right, and so now we would just end up, ahead in material here. A queen for a knight. All right, that was a 1530 rated problem. Let's do the final 3. The queen has sidestepped here to e2, attacking our unprotected knight. Let's look for checks, captures, and threats. All right. Well, what do we have here? Hopefully you'll be able to find this problem. Pause the video if you need more time. If not, let's take a look. Okay, this is a pretty cool attack against the king. You should notice that we have a rook battery here. Both rooks lining up on the open H file, threatening a check here, but the knight is covering the checkmating square here because the knight is covering that square and the king can't escape. So we have to look for, possible sacrifices. So what if the rook sacrifices itself here, forcing the knight to capture? Then our other rook sacrifices itself, forcing the king to capture. Then our queen could come over with check, forcing the king back to g1. And then our queen could come up here to h2, backed up by the knight, and deliver the mate. All right, let's try it out. Here we go. Check, capture, queen checks. Oh, and we have a block. So, when you're calculating different problems, you want to look for those in-between moves that you might not think about. So fortunately, that just blocks and we can capture with a check, and the king has to run, doesn't give his queen time to capture the knight. So now we can deliver the mate backed up by the knight. All right, that was a 1880 rated problem. So hopefully you were able to figure that out. Let's do the final two problems here. The knight has retreated back to e5. Okay, what do we have in this position? Looks like we're behind in material. We're behind in pawns, and we're down a bishop as well. And our king is kind of stuck in the center. We do have a half-open h-file. So if we look for checks, captures, and threats, there's a possible rook sacrifice here. But would that do anything? The king could get pulled open or pulled over to the open h-file. And then, do we have time to get the other pieces into the game? Oh, okay. Look for all checks. So not only can the rook check here, but now the queen could check as well. And if the king moves here or here, of course, the queen could just capture, delivering a mate. So the king would probably have to run out this way. Then what? Oh, then it looks like our rook could deliver a not quite a mate, because the bishop could block. Oh, and then we could capture, and the pawn would be pinned because the queen would be here. All right, a lot to figure out. See if you can figure all that out in your head. Pause the video if you need more time. If not, let's do it here. All right, queen check. The king runs. We deliver a check, and now we're able to deliver the mate because the queen is pinning this pawn. The pawn cannot capture, and the king can't capture, of course, because our pawn is protecting the rook. All right, interesting little 1450 rated checkmate there. The final problem. Queen is what? Captured here in the center. What do we have? Well, all right, well, this one was hopefully a little bit easier for you. Take a look, see if you can figure this out. Pause the video as always if you need more time. But if not, let's do it here. All right. Look at the checks. Now we have pawn checks that are possible. But that allows the king the bishop to capture if we, capture here. Now the queen is backing up this pawn. So if we capture this way, the king could just step in front, possibly, and block the pawn from promoting. But even better than all that is the other check. So we have to look at all the checks here. And hopefully you'll see that the queen can capture with check, being backed up by this pawn. And so where can the king go? The only option is right here. And then our queen can deliver a mate right here. All right, here we go. Check and mate. A little mate in 2, rated 1590. All right, well, feel free to leave any comments as usual. Like and subscribe if you haven't already to support the channel. Thank you for watching and have a super chess day.